and take the game from there.
Sure, definitely. So it looks like Flores' only new card that he's playing is the Blind Obedience in his sideboard.
Huh, he must have missed the memo on Gate Crash here.
Yeah,
Crash.
so
Green-White was in the first set.
Yeah, and Green-White really didn't put up that great numbers, to be honest.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if this is a good metagame call or...
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I honestly think, though, Esper Control will probably have an advantage in this matchup. I played a good amount of Esper Control online. I played a good amount of Red, White, Blue aggro online. And I've also just played the matchup a bunch. But they're started. We have Mike Flores leading off with Temple Garden. And Christopher lays a Watery Grave, or is it Darkwood Catacombs?
I think it's a Catacomb.
Okay. And Flores tries for a turn 2 Farseek. So Flores will have access to 4 mana hopefully next turn. So he's accelerating with the Farseek.
Yeah, a great position to be in versus Chris Giglio's 2 mana. Now, while Flores is shuffling, I'll give you a quick rundown of Giglio's deck.
Sure.
We have Obsidian Ghost Council, 3 of those. We have 6 Planeswalkers, Jace Architect of Thought, Sorin Lord of Innistrad, and Tamiyo. And then a whole bunch of removal. Azorius Charms, Dissipates, Terminus, Ultimate Price, Negate, Supreme Verdict, Detention Sphere, just really a well-balanced deck because he has a lot of 2s, a lot of 1s. It'll be less consistent, but he'll have a lot of different answers to all the threats that Flores can produce.
Definitely. Now, Chris just plays an island, so he has access to 2 mana. Does he have any counterspell or anything for 2 mana he can play? Any main deck negate or anything?
Yeah, he has 1 negate, he has 2 Think Twice, and 3 Azorius.
So there's a Garrick, but it looks like he does not have the negate, and Flores is going to gain some advantage here. He's going to make a 2/2 token, and I mean, Garrick is just a great card, especially versus an Esper Control deck.
Yeah, this is going to be really hard for Chris to deal with. I'm looking at his deck. He's going to have to beat that down with Lingering Souls, with Obsidian, or just straight up remove it with a Detention Sphere.
All right, so Christopher cycles with his Think Twice at the end of Flores' turn. And it looks like he's got a 3rd land. I see a hand of a Sphinx of Revelation. I see a Jace. So I see some powerful cards, but he needs to build his mana up. All right, so there's a Glare there, but it looks like it's another tap land he played. Maybe it's a Godless Shrine, maybe it's a...
I think it does produce white mana, so that's going to get him out of the little hole he's in, let him cast the D-Sphere.
It's either a Godless Shrine or the tap land from Innistrad. All right, there's a Borderline Ranger. So Flores is gaining more and more card advantage. With the Garrick, he already gained card advantage once he makes the 2nd Wolf. And also with Borderline Ranger, card advantage searching up either a Plains or a Forest.
Yep. And Chris, given the Borderland a read, it's... you know, it's interesting. The Civic Wayfinder Borderland Ranger type of card, it's always been that fringe standard playable.
Exactly.
But really, it has so much value in it. As we see here, Flores is just getting so many extra cards. Even if they are land, those lands are going to let him cast his angels.
Yeah, especially with a card like Restoration Angel as well, where he could, you know, blink out the Borderline Ranger and do it again. So Flores shuffles up his deck. Chris dropped down to 18 with an attack from the Wolf. As you see, one of those nice Star City Wolf tokens we have for you. Oh, it was actually a Hallowed Fountain.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we knew it produced white, wasn't sure what it was.
Yeah, Flores off to a really early lead here. The Garrick is just so hard for Chris to deal with. Actually, Planeswalkers in general for him.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it's always been. Creature decks are best versus Planeswalkers. Control decks, not so good against Planeswalkers.
Right.
So Chris plays a Lingering Souls, making 2 Spirit tokens, and then he passes a turn with a Glacial Fortress untapped.
Right, and now Chris is kind of in a bind here because he's on 18 facing down 6 power. He needs to keep those Souls tokens to kill that Garrick.
Yeah, I think Christopher might double block though. I think if you're going to block, you're going to want to double block. If you're not going to block, then you just don't block with any of them. So right. He double blocks, and Flores just has the Selesnya Charm, giving it +2/+2 and trample. So Chris is going to take 6 damage anyway.
Yeah, and that's huge for Flores. Now he has 8 power on the board after he activates his Garrick.
Yep.
And Chris just really in a tough spot here. Garrick just going to work on him.
Yeah, and I mean, Mike is still holding an Angel of Serenity in hand that he could cast next turn.
Wow.
So Chris draws his card for the turn. I think I might have actually just taken the damage and just actually tried to go after the Garrick some.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Getting it down to 1, it's not great because then he can +1 it, but that does set up
the next
for
turn.
next turn.
Yes,
right,
exactly.
Kill
yeah.
the Garrick.
All right, so you see Chris tap us some mana, and there's a Supreme Verdict. All right, so maybe that was his plan all along. Maybe it was, hey, I'll play this Lingering Soul, try to save some damage, and the next turn I'll just Supreme Verdict everything away.
Yeah.
There's a good chance he top-decked the Verdict as well. All right, end of turn, Flores drops a Restoration Angel, and I think Flores is going to now untap and drop an Angel Serenity. We'll see what he decides to do.
Yeah, that's going to be huge.
Yeah.
Angel Serenity. Unfortunately for Flores, only one creature in his graveyard to get back, but more importantly, 5/5 flyer.
Yeah, he could definitely get back the Borderline Ranger and protect his Restoration Angel, but he decides not to. And there's a Terminus miracled off the top by Chris.
Yeah, smart play by Flores there. He doesn't overextend. He knows that this Garrick is just going to take the game for him. Just give it enough time.
Yeah, exactly. So now Flores has 2 cards in his graveyard, so now I think it's a good time to play the Angel Serenity.
Well, the resto went to the bottom of the deck.
Oh, you're right, it did, yeah.
Terminus,
Yeah,
not
that.
Supreme. So Giglio looks like he has 5 lands available to him, 5 mana.
And he still has the Sphinx's Revelation in hand, and a Jace. So his hand is definitely stacked.
It is. It's just a question of whether he can beat that Garrick.
Yeah, and this is how I actually envisioned this game playing out. You know, before the match started, I said as per control, probably a slight favorite in the matchup. And even though Flores now has a Garrick in play, I think the momentum and the game is actually shifting towards Chris.
Definitely.
Probably already shifted after the second Wrath of God type effect.
Really important to note, though, Flores is playing 1 Garrick Relentless, 4 Garrick Primal Hunter. If that Relentless was a Primal Hunter,
the game would be totally different.
Yeah, Giglio would be in way worse shape.
Yeah. All right, so there's a Sphinx Revelation for 2. To be fair, though, the Flores did come out. Flores did play the Garrick Relentless on turn 3. So. All right, so Chris draws his card for the turn. A handful of cards, 6 or 7 cards in his grip right now. He plays his 7th land, so he pretty much could cast anything in his deck right now. And he's just debating on what he actually wants to do. I think just dropping a Jace here would be really good.
Yeah, just something to focus Mike's attention away from his life total. It'll make Mike devote a lot of resources to killing the card advantage machine. And every turn that Giglio stalls is a turn that the X spell gets even more powerful.
Yeah.
The Sphinxes.
All right, so there's a Lingering Souls flashback by Chris. Leaving up 5 mana. So I feel that since he only has 5 mana open, if he does have a Dissipate in his hand, he'll probably just want to sit on that. If not, we'll see what happens. All right, so Flores drops a Cavern of Souls, probably naming Angel, and then he decides to fight one of the spirits to flip his Garrick.
Right. Little does Flores know, though, not many counters in Chris's deck.
Yeah, only 2 Dissipates and 1 Negate, if I'm reading it correctly. So just about 3 counter spells. All right, so there's a flashback Think Twice by Chris. And then Chris draws his card for the turn. Yeah, I mean, his hand is just stacked.
Yeah.
He plays his 8th land, paying 2 life. This probably signifies either a big Sphinx Revelation or just 2 powerful spells.
Exactly, and Flores can't like this. He's a little flooded right here. This is a problem with the mana ramp deck. Once you are out of gas, half of the draws in your deck now are lands, or more than half sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. That was the problem I had at Grand Prix Atlantic City. All right, so there it is, the Ghost Council himself. One of the new cards from Gatecrash. So it's a 5 mana 5/5, really powerful, and Chris left open 3 mana, signifying that, hey, I probably have a Dissipate.
Exactly, he paid 2 life. He didn't need to do that unless he had a counterspell, and I'm sure Flores knows it.
Yep. Looks like Chris is reading his card to make sure he knows what it does. Flores draws a card for the turn. Ooh, he draws a Garrick, but unfortunately, there's already a Garrick in play.
Yeah, now that Garrick will probably die next turn, but unfortunately for him, it means he can't cast it this turn.
All right, so there's an Angel Serenity with Cavern of Souls. So even if Chris did have a Dissipate, it's not going to do much here with Cavern of Souls. Oh, and it looked like Chris actually went for the Dissipate.
And Flores gets the Ghost Council, gets the Borderland Ranger, putting himself back in the driver's seat here.
Yep.
We thought this game was over in favor of Chris, but Mike's trying to crawl back.
Definitely a really swingy game, really exciting game.
Yeah, Mike has 3 Angels of Serenity in his deck, so even if Chris can deal with this one, still 2 more waiting.
All right, so now Mike makes a 1/1 and passes the turn. Chris does have access to 8 lands, and he still has a grip full of cards. I see an Elixir of Mortality, it looked like.
Yeah, he has one of those in his deck.
Yeah, that's actually a card that kind of died off and you don't really see too much of anymore.
Yeah, I think Chris might have misread the metagame a little bit here. Maybe he was trying to combat the other Nephalia Drown Yards, but really, what we're seeing from our coverage runner, a real lot of red.
Yep. All right, so Chris passes the turn with 8 mana open. There's definitely a lot of glare on his lands, but most of them are dual lands, and he also has Nephalia Drown Yard in there. So he's probably just going to Sphinx Revelation for 5 right now.
Yep, every Sphinx's Revelation draws you to even more Sphinx's Revelations.
Exactly, and with the Elixir, he could just cycle and pretty much go infinite. Definitely a really powerful strategy. So Flores attacks for 8 points of damage here. And he drops another Cavern of Souls. And what do you think Flores is going to search up?
I think it has to be Angel Serenity, just because he has the Cavern on Angel. And as a... Oh, this is interesting. Is this in response to the search?
I don't think so. Maybe Flores just announced, hey, I'm getting Angel Serenity and passing the turn.
Yeah.
Just to try to save time, because an Esper control deck will definitely take a lot of the clock up in any matchup.
Yeah, smart by both players to shortcut there.
Yeah, so I think that life totals are not updated, but I believe Chris will probably be at 6 life here.
Yeah, I think he went to 1 and then gained 5.
Yeah.
He'll be up to 6 with a grip full of cards. And we will find out what that Garrick the Veil Cursed got. Getting the update from our judge right now.
Yeah. Sometimes the players play so quickly, take a lot of shortcuts, it's tough for us to see exactly what he went to go get.
Probably an Angel.
Alright, so it looks like he is at 6 life, we were correct. Alright, so Chris plays another land. And, I mean, he pretty much has perfect mana. It looks like 6 duels, 2 islands, and then finally a ground yard.
Yeah, Chris is never going to miss a land drop for the rest of this game.
Yeah.
Sphinx's Revelations will make sure of that.
Exactly. So I think right now Chris definitely wants to drop his Elixir. He wants to play as many spells as he could because he does not want to have to discard. Because once you draw 5 cards, there's a good chance you're going to have more than 7 cards at the end of the turn.
Right.
So there's a Jace, and it looked like he actually got Restoration Angel, Flores. Interesting choice.
Okay, so with his opponent at 6 life, he must figure, okay, 3 power Flash Flyer, that's pretty good here.
Yeah. So Jace does the mini Factor Fiction, -2.
And if I'm Mike Flores, I'm going to breathe a sigh of relief to see my opponent only casting a Jace here when he's already drawn so many cards. Jace just really doesn't do much.
Yeah, I just drew him another Jace, essentially.
Right.
So let's see if Chris has another sweeper type effect. If not, there's a good chance Chris is holding, multiple Azorius Charms.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does have 3 of those in his deck. We haven't seen any yet.
Yeah, or Ultimate Price. So I feel like Chris's hand is definitely going to be stacked here.
Yeah, land, think twice, land. Wow, I see a lot of lands.
Yeah. So this might be at Chris's end step. All right, yeah. So Flores wants to play a Restoration Angel using the Cavern of Souls. So Chris wanted to discard. Flores says, hold on a second, I have an effect on your end step. Okay, so Flores looks like he doesn't know that he can't not Restoration Angel out his Angel Serenity.
Yep, non-Angel.
Yeah, maybe that's why he got the Restoration Angel, because he thought he could look out the Angel Serenity.
That definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
It's still not that bad of a play. It's going to make Chris react here. He's going to go to 1 life, even if he has the Azorius Charm. But I'm not sure he has anything.
Yeah, I'm not too sure either. We'll definitely have to see.
Mike Flores representing 9 points of damage. Chris, after he gains 5, can go up to 11. So not dead yet.
Yeah, actually 10 points of damage.
Oh yeah, 10 points of damage.
Wolf
Discounted there.
Yeah, sure. All right, so Flores draws another Restoration Angel. So this is kind of interesting to see what Chris actually has in his hand. All right, so there's a Think Twice. Yeah, I think Chris might just be dead here.
Yeah, he's searching for a Terminus.
And oh, I guess you could go to 11, so he goes to 1.
Yep, he'll shuffle that graveyard into his library, shuffle that Think Twice away, but more importantly, the Supreme Verdict, the 2 Sphinx's Revelations.
Does Flores not have a Celestia Charm? I guess I might have...
I don't think he does.
Okay,
no.
yeah.
He has so much land this game. I think that's mostly what he's been drawing the last few turns.
All right, so Chris does everything on Flores' main phase, it looks like.
Yep, he knows what's going to happen. Mike knows what's going to happen. Chris was searching for a Terminus.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so Flores cuts his deck. And now... So Flores actually eats the Jace and then brings Chris down to 3 life.
Yeah. Now, if Chris is going to 3 on that play, I really like it. If he was going to say 4, I wouldn't like it because of the rest on his hand.
Exactly, yeah.
Good play by Flores there.
So now what is Flores going to search up? Maybe a Thragtusk?
Yeah, Thragtusk is great. Now, this gives him 2 ways to have 3 power after a sweeper.
Exactly. And Flores is going to play the Thragtusk. He's going to gain 5 life. His life total, not really relevant here.
No, definitely not. If he loses this game, it's going to be to a Drown Yard.
Exactly.
But I don't see that happening. I think Flores in firm control of this one.
Yes, I agree. So Chris is going to try to miracle something here. He still has both his Terminuses in his deck because of the shuffle effect.
Right.
And it is not a Terminus.
Looks like just a ton of lands.
Yeah, definitely a lot of lands.
Both players really flooded this game. Mike
So,
Flores, though, the one with creatures.
This looks like Chris's 10th land in play, I believe.
So any potential Sphinx's Revelation is not enough.
Yeah, exactly. It would need to be a Sphinx's Revelation and a Supreme Verdict or some effect like that.
Yeah, so maybe he'll Sphinx's Revelation, leaving 1 white mana open, hoping to Terminus.
Yeah, well, it looked like Chris was going for a Tameo.
Oh, okay.
And then he stopped himself for a second. Okay, so he goes with a Jace instead.
Okay.
So he's definitely digging. There's an Azorius Charm. There's a land. There's another land. So it's probably going to be Azorius Charm or 2 lands. Chris takes the Azorius Charm. And the Azorius Charm is another cycle effect. So he could cycle on Flores' turn, draw his first card of the turn, try to hit a Terminus.
Yeah, he has a few redraws here. He's not quite dead.
Yeah.
He has to...
Oh, he's main phasing Azorius Charm. And he draws into a Sphinx's Revelation, it looks like, so...
Yeah, he's shaking his head. He can't do anything.
And that's game. All right, so Mike Flores up the first game in this matchup. Mike on the right side of your screen, looking straight out of the Matrix, like I said earlier, playing a green-white ramp deck. At first I thought it was Naya, but he said no, just green-white.
Yeah, straight up green-white. Neo Flores, he's calling it, I think.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it's almost wrong just to only play 2 colors in a format where you could just play 5 colors very easily.
Yeah, I think the opportunity cost of splashing Kessig Wolfrun is so low in this deck that even just that would be good.
Yeah, I mean, what is a drawback from having a card like Kessig Wolfrun in Flores' deck?
Well, you have to play 1 mountain for your borderland, you have to play 1 stomping ground or 1 sacred foundry for your Farseeks, and that's it.
I don't even think you need to play a mountain.
No, not even 1 mountain?
No, I mean, sure, it's nice to be able to borderline ranger for the mountain if you want to, but you could just play 1 sacred foundry, 1 stomping ground, and just go get it off the Farseek.
Well, Mike must think that Gavany Township is better than Kessig Wolfrun in this deck because he's not even playing the max number of townships.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, and maybe we can get Flores in here later on in the day. Maybe we can ask him a few questions about his deck, but we'll definitely have to see, how he does with the deck. If Flores just goes, 1-3 or 1-4, maybe it's further proof that green-white is still not right now.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It certainly looked powerful that game. Garrick Relentless was relentless. It came into play turn 3. It lasted until about turn 11. Activated every turn. Never died.
Yeah, never died. Yeah,
just won in the game.
Yeah, pretty insane. So Chris is going to the sideboard. Flores is going to the sideboard. It looks like Chris wants to bring in some more creature control type cards. He'll definitely want to bring in the Blind Obedience, I suppose. He doesn't really have much against aggro. This is really interesting.
Yeah, he must think his aggro matchup is pretty good. He has Feeling of Dread, he has Blind Obedience, but really these are tools against the more aggressive decks.
Yeah, I mean, his sideboard is like Tormund Script, Negate, Curse of Echoes, Ghost Quarters. It's more for kind of controlling type decks. And Flores' deck, even though it's a slower ramp deck, it's not really a control type deck.
No, it's not control, but it's not really aggro either because of the Planeswalkers, because of the Tusks and the Angels. Chris is really unprepared for Flores' deck.
Do you think Chris is going to bring in the Rune Chanter Spike? He has 1 Rune Chanter Spike in his sideboard, which is kind of interesting.
To go on his 3 Obsidian?
Yeah, and I mean, he does have the Lingering Souls, so maybe he thinks, hey, if I have a Lingering Souls and a Rune Chanter Spike, I could hold off a Thragtusk, I can hold off Angel's Serenity if I'm lucky. Not really too sure the reason behind that.
That's a pretty good idea, though, because First Strike, Flores can't do anything about that First Strike except for Selesnya Charm.
Yeah, Selesnya Charm could definitely be a big blowout there. Or, the other thing is that Flores could just sit back on his Township, and every turn he could Township, grow his creatures.
Right.
Township is actually one of the best cards versus the control decks, because you say, hey, I'll just play down 1 or 2 elves, and if you're not doing anything, I'll just sit back, grow my elves, and you're going to have to answer these cards.
Exactly. The activated ability lands from Innistrad are so powerful against the control decks. Kessig Wolfrun with a 1/1.
Yes.
Dead.
Kessig Wolfrun, Moorland Haunt, Gavany Township. Not so much the red-black one. Just dealing 2 damage a turn is kind of slow, and I believe it's for 5 mana plus the land itself. So 6 mana to deal 2 damage. It just never really found a home.
Now, Stenzia Bloodhall, I thought it was going to be good when Innistrad came out. It was a superstar for me in one of my first drafts I did, but yeah, 6 mana, just a little too much.
Yeah, definitely.
I'd rather Flashback Bump in the night.
Yeah, and both of the Archangels saw a lot of play. Still see some play. Actually, we played a match, Zach and I, the other day on Moto, Magic Online. We played a game of Modern, and Vault was one of the key cards in that matchup.
Yeah, Vault of Archangel giving lifelink to Knight of the Reliquary is a pretty big deal, as it turns out.
Yeah, definitely.
So Mike Flores' sideboard. He also has Blind Obedience, and that's a card we've seen popping up in a lot of different decks, a lot of sideboards. Modern, even Legacy, I've seen it.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. And that was another card that came out. It was, you know, a $2 card. People thought, hey, it might be okay. And then people started playing with it and realized that Blind Obedience is just a really powerful card, and it's definitely gonna, you know, kind of warp standard. I would feel.
Yeah, it's Kismet 2013 version.
Yeah.
So Mike, what he'll be siding in? He'll be siding in 2 Staff of Nin, 1 Acidic Slime, and I think that's it. I don't think he wants Rest in Peace. That doesn't really do enough for him.
The 2 Staff of Nims for sure. Acidic Slime, definitely yes.
But really, all of his other tools are for other matchups. He has Faith Menders, he has Tristani, he has Terminus. There's just not the matchups that he wants him in.
I can see Flores maybe bringing Blind Obedience just because he feels that the game's going to go so long that he could turn his, you know, somewhat dead Farseeks late in the game into deal 1 damage on game 1 life.
Yeah, that's definitely not so bad. If he has worse cards to bring out, I like that plan.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so Chris is definitely going to be on the play this game. I have a feeling that this match is going to take up the entire round.
Yeah.
Esper Control versus a green-white ramp deck that searches their deck, you know, and Flores is not going to kill him quick. He might get down an early threat quick, but the game's not going to end in 4 or 5 turns.
Right, unless Chris keeps a bad hand or stalls out on land. This one's going long.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see many players in the background. We have over 300 players here, even in this crazy snowstorm. So they're off to the races here. We have Chris leading off with a Hollow Fountain. Flores drops a Forest and an Arbor Elf. All right, so there's a Ghost Quarter.
Yeah, maybe signifying that Chris kept a really mana-light hand.
Yeah, I feel that the only way he would keep this hand is with a card like Think Twice. So I'm guessing he probably has a Think Twice here, but he does not. All right, kind of interesting.
Oh, Glacial Fortress, that's what it was. He was... Oh, no, he could have played that on tap. Maybe he was trying to...
Yeah, I'm not...
I don't know what was going on there.
Yeah. All right, so Flores has access to 5 mana right here, but instead he only taps 3 and tries for a Borderline Ranger. Chris gives him the thumbs up, and unless Flores has, say, a Farseek here, those Arbor Elves just might get in for some damage. Now, Flores probably doesn't want to drop any more creatures unless he really has to, because he doesn't want to walk into just a Supreme Verdict or a Terminus. This would be a perfect spot for Flores to have a Gavany Township.
Yeah, that would be amazing right here for him. And actually, you know what? The more I think about Chris Giglio's turn 2 land drop, the more I like it, because maybe it makes Mike a little too over-aggressive. Maybe it makes him overextend into Supreme Verdict a little bit. I like it a lot.
All right, so there's an Isolated Chapel, and there is a Supreme Verdict. So Chris, 3 for 1's Flores, but essentially it was only really a 3 for 2 because Flores did get back a Plains with his Borderline Ranger.
Right. More importantly, though, it buys him some time.
Yep. And Mike Flores now drops a Carrick Relentless. He'll make a 2/2 Wolf. That was the problematic card for Chris in game 1. So we'll see if he, you know, maybe has an answer for it in the second game.
Yeah, he only has 2 D-Sphere in his whole deck.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he has to attack it.
All right. There's looks like Chris played in the Thalia Drown Yard. And oh, Tamiyo, definitely really good right here.
Yeah, that's an answer to Garrick Relentless.
Yeah.
The Garrick will outpace it eventually, but the important part is Chris will get to untap. That Tamiyo will still be at 5 counters.
Exactly. Now, maybe there's some argument to keep Flores off 5 lands here, tap down to Sun Petal Grove, but I think you want to try to, you know, keep Tamiyo's loyalty high right here. Yeah.
Especially since you only have access to 1 Tamiyo in the whole 75. Keeping it in play is very important.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so Flores taps out for a Thragtusk. He gains his 5 life, and then he passes the turn after making a Wolf as well. So Chris now has access to 6 lands. Looks like he has a Hollow Fountain in his hand. I see a Hollow Fountain, I see Elixir. I don't really like Elixir versus a green-white ramp deck. I feel Elixir Mortality could be sided out against a deck like Mike's.
Yeah, it's not really at its strongest. The 5 life usually isn't going to be the difference maker. You're either going to win or lose regardless of life total.
Exactly, because Flores' deck doesn't really care about dealing small amounts of damage in 1 turn. He'll just deal lots of damage in 1 turn.
Right. So Tamiyo locks down the Thragtusk. Mike will have 2 wolves attacking that Tamiyo.
Yeah, but Chris does have a Feeling of Dread in hand, so you can actually tap both the wolves. I think he will do that. Yes, all right, so he taps both the wolf, and now if Chris wants, he can use Tamiyo as a draw card engine here. He can just draw 3 cards.
Yeah, he has a lot of options.
Yeah.
He has to figure out whether or not that Tamiyo will go ultimate this game.
Exactly. Ooh, there's a Celestial Key Rune.
Wow, maybe one of the most underplayed key runes.
Yeah, definitely. And Flores makes another wolf, passes the turn. So I think Chris probably wants to dig deep in his deck right here, unless his plan is to try to go ultimate, but I really think he probably can't go ultimate at this point in the game. I think he needs to just try to find more threats, try to find more answers.
Yeah, it looks like that's what he's going to do.
Yep.
1,
so
2,
he
3.
draws 3 cards. There's a Glacial Fortress, there's an Isolated Chapel.
Wow.
And the last card was a
Swamp.
Swamp. Wow.
So Chris, brick.
Yeah.
He draws nothing. He'll have to just play an Elixir, I think. I think that's all he has available to him.
Does he have nothing else?
He's a Rune Chanter's Pike.
Yeah. And that's the problem with Rune Chanter's Pike. I think you want Rune Chanter's Pike versus a more control deck without any creatures sometimes as well. You could actually get through, deal lots of points of damage in one turn. I feel Chris maybe made some sideboard decisions that he would want to go back on.
Yeah,
Not too sure.
I don't always play control decks with 3 creatures, but when I do, I play Rune Chanter's Pike.
I don't know about that, but the game is looking bad for Chris. Hopefully he can get out of it.
Oh wow, Angel of Serenity drawn for Flores.
Ooh, that's bad.
He has all the tools this game.
That
Chris,
is
all
bad.
the lands, Mike, all the spells.
Yeah, and you know what, to be fair, Chris did draw maybe the wrong part of his deck. Maybe a Rune Chanter's Pike with an Elixir is very bad, but a Rune Chanter's Pike with a Lingering Souls would have been so much better for him here.
Right.
Or
And
so,
that's...
Feeling of Dread's gonna tap down doesn't want to tap down Thragtusk?
No, he might have an Azorius Charm for that Thragtusk.
Okay, I'm not too sure.
Ultimate price, it looks like.
Ultimate price?
Yep.
Okay. I can see that. I mean, Chris is still not out of this game.
No, definitely not. He's one sweeper away from, if not stabilizing, at least being in it.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess Flores is thinking, what's going to go at Tamiyo, what's going to go at Chris. All right, so there's an ultimate price on the Thragtusk explaining why he didn't fail in the Dreaded. But I'm not too sure what Chris's plan is going to be. I guess just the top deck.
Yeah, so Tamiyo down.
because Tamiyo still dies. I'm not sure what the Flores' attack actually was.
No, well, the Wolf and the Key Rune definitely went at the Tamiyo.
I mean, if everything goes out Tamiyo, you don't even need the ultimate price there. You could just wait until the end step.
Right, or try and draw a turn, or to try and draw a Terminus too.
Exactly, and then if not everything didn't go at the Tamiyo, you would want to probably ultimate price something else to keep Tamiyo alive, correct? Because if a 2/2 and a 3/3 is attacking it, that's 5, so he could actually save it.
Yeah, we'll see what Chris has planned here.
Yeah,
I'm guessing that all those creatures were attacking Tamiyo though.
Yeah, but do you understand my point here? He could just save it until the end step.
Right.
Yeah, just like gain more information, a small advantage.
So Chris, with just the Dissipate and some lands, I believe, Dissipate, Rune Chanter's Pike, and lands, he's going to have to crack that Elixir just to stay alive one more turn.
Yeah, even a card like Dissipate is not very good against Flores, because sure, it can hit a Planeswalker, but Flores doesn't access the Cavern of Souls. Not 1, not 2, not 3. He has 4 Cavern of Souls. So Flores really wants to get through his big Angels, his Thragtusk, and whatnot.
Right. So Chris looks like he's going to Ghost Quarter his own land. I'm not sure if he's just trying to thin his deck or if he has a plan here.
Yeah, you know, sometimes you might want to try to filter some mana. He wants to thin his deck. We'll see exactly what's going on.
Oh, I think he's looking for outs. I think he's not sure what he can draw. He's trying to plan this turn based on what he can still draw.
Yeah, maybe Chris is somewhat unfamiliar with his deck. Not sure how he sideboarded or whatnot. But you're allowed to always check your sideboard to see, you know, what you have in your sideboard and what you have in your deck.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can see him thumbing through his deck, shaking his head. He realizes that this matchup is just not good for him at all.
Yeah, definitely.
He does not have the tools to deal with Planeswalkers, Key Runes, Angel of Serenities.
Yeah, just a really bad matchup for Chris, it looks like. He didn't draw well this game, and last game, Flores just drew good with the turn 3 Garruk Relentless, but hey, that's what Flores' deck really does.
Exactly. He's playing 5 Garruk, he's playing 12 ramp spells, so if he doesn't have a turn 4 Garruk or turn 3 Garruk, something's wrong. So it looks like game 1 to the Agent, probably game 2 as well.
So Chris is just thinking, what can he really do? Flores is just in great shape this game. I mean, Flores is pretty much almost facing. Oh, okay. So there's a Ghost Council.
Yep, that's going to keep him alive for one more turn.
Yes, it's not going to do too much though, I don't think. All right, so there's Ghost Council. When it comes into play, your opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life, and at the beginning of your end step, you could, flicker it out essentially.
Right, now the downside of that is that it can't block if you flicker it. So
Exactly.
as we saw here, Chris didn't flicker it.
It's really powerful against other control decks.
Right. And against decks with sweepers.
Yes. So there's an Angel Serenity. There's Dissipate. So Dissipate actually did some work this game. Flores didn't draw one of his 4 Cavern Souls, so he was able to dissipate that. Alright, so Flores deals 8 damage with his Wolf tokens.
Yep, the Ghost Council.
He'll probably just finish it off right now.
Right,
Yeah.
I would think so.
That makes the most sense.
So now Chris has fought himself to a position where there's no Planeswalker on the board. All he has to do is draw a sweeper.
Yeah.
Oh,
wow,
Desphere.
Detention Sphere, awesome. So Detention Sphere could get all the wolves.
Yeah, so Chris not out of this game.
Wow,
Looked like he was, but that Ghost Council sucked up some damage, sucked up the Garrett.
It really did. We were saying, you know what? This game looks pretty much over for Chris, but now he has somewhat of a chance here. So all the wolf tokens are gone.
And Chris, all he can do is say go. Now, not pictured in this game, there's an Elixir of Immortality off screen for Chris. We can't see it, but it's there, so Chris effectively at 16.
Alright, so Flores is going to untap. And he draws a Township now. And he'll play a Thragtusk.
Wow.
And I think he's probably going to want to activate the Key Rune and get him for some damage.
Yeah, it looks like it. I'm not sure why he played the Tusk pre-combat, but it doesn't matter because Chris just has a land.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he wants Chris to tap out so the Key Rune is safer from removal spell or whatnot.
Sure.
Alright, so he is going to sacrifice the Elixir of Mortality.
Interesting timing. He must want to shuffle that Ghost Council back into his deck.
Yeah, it just kind of builds up more threats in his deck. He doesn't want to draw any more lands.
Right.
But the other argument is that he does want to draw a Sphinx's Revelation, which is probably his best card right here.
Yeah.
So, and there was no Sphinx's Revelations in the graveyard.
Yeah, so he's kind of diluting his Sphinx's Revelations, but increasing the consistency of, say, drawing a Ghost Council.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So, interesting play. I'm not sure the math on that one.
Yeah, I don't think there was a Sphinx's Revelation in his graveyard.
No, there wasn't.
Yeah. So he drew a land. So it's like Swamp Glacial Fortress in his hand. So Chris doesn't want to really bluff and hold lands in his hand. He wants to play as many lands as he could, just in case he does draw a Sphinx's Revelation.
Right. What's the green-white deck going to play around anyway?
Exactly. Alright, so Chris is going to kill the Gavany Township, and Flores is going to swap the Township for a Forest. And Flores shuffles up his deck. I mean, I still think Flores is in great shape this game, obviously.
Yeah, Chris is going to have to get lucky to win this one. He's at 16, but that's only 2 attacks from Keyroom plus Tusk.
Flores draws a Forest for his turn, so Flores is kind of flooding out again, but he does have Angel Serenity still sitting in hand, which is just such a powerful card. Maybe Flores is kind of worried that the last card in Chris's hand is a Dissipate, so he doesn't really want to, you know, lose his only last thread in his hand, essentially.
Right, Flores doesn't have to play that because, well, he can just wait for one of his 4 Cavern of Souls.
Exactly. So Flores' last card in hand is the Angel. He's attacking Chris for 8 points of damage here.
Yep, and Chris will go to 8. Because of the 5 life gain from the Elixir.
Alright, so there's a Drown Yard hitting a Blind Obedience and a couple of irrelevant spells.
Yep, so you were right, he did side the Blind Obediences in.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I thought he would do here. So it looks like Chris drew a spell as he's separating his mana. I think it might have been a Ghost Council or a Jace. I thought it was a Ghost Council, but then he only started tapping 4. Alright, it was a Ghost Council. So 2 more life for Chris. Flores loses 2 life, not that relevant here.
Nope. Chris hanging on in this game by his fingernails.
Yeah, I wonder if Flores is going to go for the Angel Serenity now.
Yeah, I think he has to. I think he's played around Dissipate long enough, and he can't afford to wait.
What's Flores' other card in his hand? I know it's the Angel Serenity. I couldn't really make it out what the other one was. The way he put that in his hand also looked like he only had 1 card in his hand as well.
Alternatively, Mike can just attack the Thragtusk, force the block, and still be in fine shape. But I think he's slamming the Angel. He's decided Chris doesn't have the Dissipate.
Oh, there's a Thragtusk. Did he tap enough white mana?
No, we'll make sure he taps that Temple Garden instead of the Forest. Just an oversight by Mike there.
I think we might hold the match for a second. Angel Serenity is triple white. It looks like he tapped Forest, 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 Plains, and Keyroom. Maybe those sunglasses, Flores can't really tell what his cards do. Alright, so the judge stops the match with our assistants.
Warning, caution, game loss.
Alright, Flores game loss. No, I'm just joking. Just a small mistake by Flores, no harm right there.
Nope, Flores has all the mana he needs. Does not really matter here.
So I think there's just probably a small debate going on. The judges are just talking to Flores, probably just giving a warning for the small misplay there.
Yep, little slap on the wrist, not a big deal. We know that this was not even close to trying to cheat.
Yeah, not intentional at all.
No advantage to be gained.
All right, so Chris has one last draw, it looks like.
Is it a Terminus?
It was definitely not a Terminus. It might be it was a Azorius Charm. Okay, so probably here, he's probably just going to have to pass the turn and cycle the Azorius Charm.
No, I think he wants to cycle main phase because then he can hit a Supreme Verdict.
But I mean, Supreme Verdict even you're really going to do anything? Because Flores still has a key rune, he'll get a token off the Thragtusk.
It keeps him alive at least. We'll see what Chris draws.
Either way, it's really bad, yeah. We will see what Chris draws on Flores' turn. Flores counting his mana. He activates the key rune. He's going to cycle an Azorius Charm. Really hoping for a Terminus here. Living on a turn.
Miracle. No miracle for Chris.
All right, and that's game. So a hard fought battle. We had Mike Flores on the right side of your screen with a green-white ramp deck. We had Chris on the left side of your screen with an Esper control deck. It was really bad for Chris. Game 1.